and welcome to Indianomics. The focus this week has to be banks. In a midnight swoop on Monday, as it were, the Reserve Bank changed the rules whereby banks were resolving cases of stress and default. The rules have now become world-class, but before we reach utopia, there could be hurdles for banks. Firstly, the old schemes like corporate debt restructuring, strategic debt restructuring, structured asset scheme have all been done away with. Loans currently which are under these schemes, CDR, SDR, S4A, get 6 months to be resolved, else they are going to be marched to the bankruptcy court. Secondly, when bankers to a defaulter design a restructured loan, all banks have to agree. Also, a rating agency has to give the new loan an investment grade. That's a tall ask. Thirdly, now banks have to report first-time defaulters on a weekly basis, so no time to give them any extra elbow room. Fourthly, upgrading a default loan gets tougher. It can be done only when 20% of the principal is repaid. The questions that we are asking today is, one, how painful is the transition going to be to the new system of loan classification? Two, can the rules be tweaked to iron out some difficult requirements? Three, can the bankruptcy courts take the load that is going to come its way? Fourthly, will the capital recently sanctioned to public sector banks be enough given the likely higher bad loan load? To answer all these questions, we have a star panel, Mr. S.S. Mundra, former Reserve Bank Deputy Governor and a former Chairman of Bank of Baroda, Shyam Srinivasan, Managing Director of Federal Bank, Suresh Ganapathy, the banking expert from Macquarie Securities, and in a bit we will also be joined by Sandeep Parekh of FinSec Law Advisors. Gentlemen, thank you very much for finding time for me. Well, Mr. Mundra, first up to you, sir. Bankers' big problem is this is a tall ask, expecting rating agencies to give their investment grade. Rating agencies normally wait to see how a loan performs. Is this the first and the biggest hurdle?
I have been on record telling many times, even when the IBC was under discussion, that whatever has been put by RBI, they are all only second-best solution. And once the IBC is in place, everything else gets subsumed into this. So that's the one point. Yeah. After IBC came into existence, first the 12 large cases, then a number of cases, they were put. So it means it was logical progression to believe that other cases would come. So I think that there had been enough now background and understanding in the bank's part. And of course, there would be initial difficulties in adjusting to some of these provisions. And to my mind, there may be scope in some of these provisions to undergo maybe a slight modification. Basic thrust remains the same. No grievance with the basic thrust, but some of the operational issues can be tweaked. But other than that, I think system should gear up to deal with this situation.
Mr. Mundra, where should the tweaks come? For instance, the two big problems that bankers have told us over the past 2 days is one that you can't get all banks to agree to a restructuring package. Maybe this 100% requirement should be tweaked. It doesn't find any mention in the rules. And secondly, this rating agency issue. Any comments on these two requirements?
Yes, as far as you know, while you say that the guidelines don't mention, I have not seen any reference that even 100% is needed. But okay, by absence, you believe that that is what is required. But to my mind, there are two areas where some tweaking can be relevant from the operational viewpoint. Number one, default is categorized at the point when there is a default in repayment, and then the categorization are given, and SMA 0 is 1 to 30 days default. If you recollect in the earlier guideline, SMA 0 contains many other things, not only the repayment default. But even if you put that aside, my point is in a real life scenario, in a business, there can be some cash flow mismatches. So if you say that on day one you treat it as default, put the RP, all lenders should come together, and let's say after 2-3 days, the cash flow has come and it has been repaid.
Yeah.
Then this all becomes a kind of wasted effort.
Okay.
To my mind, it would be much more prudent and practical that, once the account enters into SMA 1 category, it means 30 days if there is a period where the default has persisted. I think that should be the point where the 180 days should kick in and entire other set of actions should kick in. That is one.
Yeah.
Second, to my mind, while scrapping all other schemes is logical, but I think for some time when there is a transition period, it would have been meaningful to maintain the forum like JLF.
Okay.
Because in each typical large cases, a number of lenders are involved with different level of exposures. And at times, I think ultimate idea is resolution and not the liquidation, preserve the economic capacity, and also not having the belief that all the promoters have misbehaved. If those are the fundamentals which we accept, then some regulatory nudge in the form of a real little bit hard-coded JLF, I think would be meaningful to begin with.
Okay.
Going forward, maybe when the system has lived, you can do away with that.
Yeah. Okay.
That is what I believe.
Yeah, and having the JLF.
As far as the ratings are concerned,
Yeah.
I think both.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
But just quickly. Yeah. But I would quickly only say both lenders, borrowers, and raters. I think all will have to evolve themselves to meet with these requirements.
Okay. But do you think it's practical? Will the rating agencies oblige at all? Or in practice, they have normally waited for a loan to perform before they upgrade, isn't it, Mr. Mundra?
Yeah, but see, that is the whole point, that if some event has happened and then the rating change, I think the whole signal giving, I mean to say, use of rating itself is then not much more meaningful. That is why I say everyone would have to evolve for that.
Okay, well, Shyam, first of all, on this JLF idea, do you think that needs to be maintained? At least because then you can have this vote that, 75% of the bankers agree. Or do you think that becomes difficult because the one banker who disagrees can take the whole lot to IBC? Can we tweak or can't we?
This early recognition is great, but SMA 0 is probably a touch too sensitive, given that this client behavior is the biggest issue here. They have been used to one kind of behavior. You're trying to alter that dramatically on a particular given date. I think the 30-day window, making it say SMA 1, will be a good start point. Now, if that were to be accommodated, then the issue can be around whether see, in some form there is going to be an equivalent of a JLF. We may not call it so. The issue is whether it's 100% or 75%. In the absence of any clarity in this, we are assuming it's 100%. I think we have to make a representation that it's going to be almost a humongous task getting everybody, the biggest lender and the smallest lender, on the same table in the same time to tag it and get the process kick-started. So I think the two big requirements that will make this clearer and as the evolution happens. One is rechristen the 30-day window as some kind of a period in which the customer is correcting his behavior. SMA 0 actually starts where SMA 1 starts. In that case, you've accommodated the client's inefficiencies, the system inefficiencies, and brought in that on the same page. The second certainly is the number of lenders who are going to participate, and I think this includes NBFCs too. Now, I don't know how it's going to be, all lenders are going to come together. So to some extent, the JLF, while the name may be abolished, there has to be some kind of a loose congregation of lenders have to come together. Whether it's 75% by value, 75% by number of lenders, is certainly something that we have to negotiate for to make this process easier. And I think that's where Mr. Mundra said all three, the lender, borrower, and the rater, has to evolve. It is going to be a teething period of 90-odd days or maybe 2 quarters by which time everything will sort itself out. But directionally it was coming. Right? We didn't think it would come on the day it came, but direction was that existing programs are not going to be grandfathered any longer, and we have to come into a post-IBC eras.
What do you mean by SMA 0 should become SMA 1? I would assume what they mean now is that on the 31st day, if the interest doesn't come in, you have to report on that Friday, right?
Yeah, that's for your revolving credit. For term loans, it's day one.
Okay. So day one when the interest is not paid.
Yeah. No, SMA 0 has other softer aspects also, right? I mean, it's not just default on payment.
All right.
So there are, and within 3 days, if he corrects himself, will you still put it under a program? So I think the 30-day window would be a good period where we could have established the client's intention to pay or capability to pay and be sure that this is good case for resolution now.
Fair enough. What about the rating agency issue, Shyam? Do you think the RBI has set the bar too high?
It is, but I think this will correct itself. I don't see that as a big problem. Yes, there will be issues of who's going to pay, how much is the pay and negotiation part. But remember, they are only rating the plan. They are not giving a clean sheet. Now, the plan is what we are trying to execute. If the plan doesn't execute it, then the problem kicks in. So I don't think the rating agencies will have too much of a problem of rating the viability of the plan.
Okay.
Now, that is a matter of their judgment of analyzing how the behavior of the client is, the business potential, the underlying security that is there, and the trajectory of payments hitherto, and some kind of integrity of the borrowers. Okay. So I think the development of rating agencies' capability to rate, I don't think is as much of an issue as the fact that A, the cost of doing it, B, if there are 2 rating agencies and the minimum rating required is RP4, those are the kind of issues that will get evolved. But I don't see the rating agencies, there could be timing issue because the rating agencies may suddenly be plundered with too many requests. So those are more operational. I don't think rating agencies will say, no, I'm not going to be able to rate this.
Okay. Yeah, but only thing is whether they will be forthcoming and give an investment grade rating. That was the worry.
That is a natural bias. But the sample size is like that, right? Nobody, it's like a patient going to a doctor. Only when you're unwell, you're going.
Yeah.
So the sample size is itself... by default, a negative base.
Fair enough. So I guess the bankers' worries are justified. Okay, gentlemen, we need to take a break at this juncture, but we are coming back to ask our panelists what will be the impact of these rules on public sector banks and on the banking system in general.